Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at these new experimental ships, starting off with the Tier 10. These will temporarily be available in the game, only until update 14.7. You will obtain these ships the exact same way you obtained the previous round, those available for action reports in the tech tree. There's a special little tab for experimental ships, and it's going to cost you action reports and credits. Couple months, only 2 updates is what these will be available for. So we're starting off with the Varese here at tier 10. This looks a lot like a Michelangelo, and that's because it is up-tiered Michelangelo here. This ship is absolutely insane though. We're gonna go through the stats and talk about how it's worse than a Michelangelo in a lot of ways. And yet, I think this is an absolutely game-breaking ship. Like all the experimental ships before it, I think this is going to be incredibly unfun to fight against. At tier 10 here, a secondary gimmick with SAP means it's just aura damage. It's AI-based aura damage. And while we don't get a ton of damage out of those secondaries right away, it's constant annoying pressure that is not player-controlled. Someone's not aiming this. Something I really want you to notice too here in this next clip, there's going to be a lot going on. We're going to take out both this Wisconsin and the Holland. But pay attention to the Holland. What am I going to do actively against him? All I'm going to do is tell my secondaries to shoot at him. That is it. Everything else is dedicated to Wisconsin, trying to angle as well as get our torpedoes off, which do a ton of damage since we're a copy of Michelangelo. It's around 20,000 damage. There goes the Holland. There goes the torpedoes. And we get ourselves a double strike there, all the way up to 152,000 damage. That was about 1 minute and 45 seconds since the video started, and I had about 16,000 damage at the beginning of this video, and we got up to 152 there. This is an absolutely disgusting YOLO ship where you absolutely dunk on anyone at these closer ranges, but even at mid-range, you just have constant SAP secondary pressure. I'm a little bit annoyed right now, okay? I'm gonna... You can probably tell. I'm gonna try and tone it down so we can talk about what this ship is all about. But I'm really frustrated with Wargaming and how they've handled these experimental ships. I was quite hopeful that they would cancel this second round of experimental ships after the first round was so game-breaking and so unfun to fight against. But no, they have pushed through with it. I desperately hope that Wargaming reconsiders ever doing experimental ships again after update 14.7 drops. That's my only hope at this point. The next 2 updates are going to be absolutely miserable to deal with because these ships will just get to push in an AI secondary gun you. I am a brawler battleship player. You guys know me. I enjoy it. But this is just busted. There is no gameplay here. This is simply... I get close to you, and close in this case refers to 15 kilometers about is our maximum secondary range. And I'm just going to do secondary damage to you. A lot of my games, I didn't even fire my guns very often because Michelangelo, and as a consequence, Varese here, have horrible firing angles. 38 degrees forward, 38 degrees backwards. Because your armor is decent in your midship, notice we're not going to take too much damage from these Utrecht bombs. We have a 40 mil deck armor, 40 mil upper belt. Well, we typically just want to stay angled and let the secondaries go to town. Look at this. This Utrecht is at 13.6 away from us. That ship just got released into the game recently, and it's already getting outranged by secondaries? What? Fortunately, the Shanano makes a mistake, stops broadside on. He's spotted, and our guns... actually connect 5 out of 5 citadels. Yeah, that was a rarity. Okay, these guns are not particularly accurate compared to Michelangelo. This ship is worse in many ways. You have a little bit more HP, but it's the same detection, same speed, same acceleration. Your rudder shift is actually getting a slight buff compared to what you're seeing on screen here. I was playing with a 14.4 second rudder shift. It's actually on release going down to 12.4 seconds. That devblog came out after this NDA lifted on Monday, by the way. It also included buffs to Protector and Nanning getting a 360-degree turret buff that the video was already made for that ship. I didn't have time to remake it, man. I don't know what's going on with Wargaming. Another small criticism here, but after NDA lifts, we're releasing buffs to a ship that are going to go live in a couple of days when the patch drops. What? What is this balancing department, man? I don't understand. Okay, I'm gonna try and keep it together. Repairing damage is a very key element of this ship. We do not have access to a smoke screen like we would on the Michelangelo or the Napoli, for example. This ship has to survive open water, or more likely we need to use island cover. But you've probably noticed this heal already. 46,000 HP heal. That is absolutely ridiculous. This heal reminds me a lot of the Sevastopol heal. And in some ways it's a little better, but in one key area it's slightly worse. Our repair percentage. We talked about this recently when we took a look at the Cambridge. Also, we need to talk about it when we bring up any super heal, really. Salem, for example, but also things like Valparaiso. One of the reasons Valparaiso is able to constantly heal back to full HP for free is its repair percentage. The damage you take from full pens is extremely high. If that repair percentage isn't high, then your follow-up heals after your first or second one aren't going to be very efficient because that damage was permanent to your ship. So for a Varese here, where we have a 46,000 HP heal, we heal back 60% of pen damage. We heal back 100% of fires, floods, that kind of thing. So I'm not worried about letting fires burn on my ship. And we heal back 33% of Citadel repair. So going for full superintendent builds here to get up to 4 of these heals sounds crazy, but we're actually not going to get efficient value out of that 4th heal. Even the 3rd heal, notice here we have 1 left. That would be our 3rd heal. We only get 6,000 back currently. So of course I'm not going to use it just yet as we push in with a Petro and a Libertad against Utrecht bombs. Oh my goodness. It's just world of gimmicks, man. I can't. Where's my standard battleship cruiser destroyer play? Give me the old days of Gearing, Shima, Zhao, Des Moines, Monty, Yamato, bro. I wish I could go back. Okay, small tangent aside, let's keep going here. Main battery is worse than the Michelangelo, surprisingly, actually. While you have a little bit more range and slightly better turret traverse, the problem is your reload is a second longer and you have worse dispersion. In the form of Sigma, you have 0.1 worse Sigma, so a little bit less consistency there. But your shells are massively nerfed. Your AP is doing over 1,000 less alpha damage, as is your sap shells. Your sap shells are almost down 1,500, 1.5k alpha damage, so quite a bit less damage output here. Worse pen on the AP shells too. The focus here, of course, is on the secondaries. You've seen the range at this point. Out to 15 kilometers maximum range when we're on low HP. Below 25% HP, we are getting some absolutely ridiculous buffs here. This fight or flight skill, which gave ridiculous reload and accuracy buffs on the initial round of experimental ships, are now giving us ridiculous range and reload buffs on our secondaries. At 25% HP, that's where it maxes out, by the way, we're getting 20% improved range and 40% improved reload. Ridiculous. And I think particularly unfun to fight against. I don't think this is going to be enjoyable at all to face. Obviously, the initial round of experimental ships weren't either, but this in particular is just going to feel unwinnable. Just a constant pressure from secondaries. Here, let me duel a Schlieffen for you. Do you guys remember when Schlieffen was that incredible threat at close range? Remember that? We're going to trade very favorably with this guy, actually. I can't believe it, man. At least these things will be gone soon. 2 patches, that's what you gotta wait. Maybe Wargaming's being kind to us over summer, at least if you're in Northern Hemisphere. Get outside, go touch some grass, gamers. Spend 2 months away from the game or something. I don't know, bro. But this is crazy. Up to 15 kilometer range, 40% reload buff. Oh my goodness. It's ridiculous. But we need to continue talking about the abilities that this ship has. Secondaries wise here, it's not all perfect. These aren't the massively improved accuracy like we get on the Napoli. It is improved. It's like Michelangelo secondaries. At 10 kilometers, it's 300 meters dispersion, where Napoli gets 240 meters dispersion. Standard secondary dispersion is 600 meters at 10 kilometers. So it's twice as good as usual. But on cruisers, remember, we don't have any way of buffing their accuracy with manual secondaries. The only reason to select targets with your secondaries, which I am still doing, by the way, is to tell them to focus a specific target. Otherwise, there's no other extra buff that we're getting. Our hitting DPM is slightly worse than the Michelangelo at 10 kilometers. We have 92,000 SAP hitting DPM there at 10 kilometers, where Michelangelo's at 101,000. For reference, Napoli is at 89,000 hitting DPM on its sap there. But remember, that's at stock. We get a 40% reload buff on those secondaries, which, by the way, stacks with AR. It stacks with AR. I could not believe that with the first round of these experimental ships, that the fight or flight skill also stacked with AR, and here it does too. So as we get to those really low HPs, I mean, the reload is just ridiculous on this ship. And yet, in most of my games, I really didn't accomplish that much damage-wise. We tanked a ton, by the way, through these games. Many games, over 5 million potential damage in this ship. Absolutely wild. But my actual damage from my guns was around 100,000 average, somewhere in there. Which doesn't sound like such a broken, overpowered ship that's horrible for the game, does it? If we only look at the end score screen of the actual damage we dealt, which personally I don't think is a very good metric to determine if it was a fun experience or not. I don't think it tells you much about a fun experience or not. This is not actually a very busted ship if we only take that into account. The problem is the damage that we do deal is just very, very, very toxic in my opinion. I don't think this Utrecht is particularly enjoying himself. I think Utrecht bombs are also a toxic form of damage. This is very subjective, by the way. I'm not a fan of carriers. I'm not a fan of subs. I'm not a fan of these bombs. You would think that being a brawler secondary battleship guy who enjoys close range action, that I would love these ships coming to the game, but I really don't, okay? I don't really enjoy things that feel out of players' control. And secondaries fit into that role a little bit, okay? In the past, they were a nice bonus, but they were not the whole damage output of your ship. They were not the whole package, okay? We get behind this island, barely dodging the carrier. Ton of carrier focus on this thing, by the way. But that's standard for test ships. And we just happen to have a hipper in our sights at 14 kilometers, and our secondaries just open up. I didn't even realize that we could shoot at them because I was focused on dodging, and yet we still just opened up. We finally get ourselves an Utrecht in our sights, broadside on 15 kilometers. These are like 320 millimeter guns, something like that. Should do some good damage, but no, the accuracy here is actually generally quite poor. That Shinano salvo was just a bit of an outlier, I would say. You just need to get in range to get your secondaries on target, and that's it. That's the whole thing. I find that kind of boring to play, and I think to play against it, it's going to be very, very unfun. I'm sure you've met a few of these things in your random battles as testers have been going on. I don't think it's been particularly enjoyable. Something I've complained about in the past. There's still more to talk about on the ship specs, by the way. I can't help it, okay? You're here. You know what I'm about. I gotta do these tangents and rants every once in a while in these videos, especially when it's such a poor addition to the game. I found myself complaining about spawn camping ships. People pre-kited in spawn, HE spamming, and no one would push. A game like this is a good example. The enemy team has 4 ships taken out. That's it. 4 ships taken out so far, and they're all behind where they spawned at this point. We're going to full send push into them because this ship is so crazy tanky, and we're going to survive for quite a long time. The thing that really kills me is actually the crossfire that the carrier forces me into, unfortunately. But this is not very enjoyable gameplay where people sit in spawn sniping at one another. And I've complained about this for a while, and I wonder if maybe these complaints have actually gotten through to Wargaming. Maybe that's patting myself on the back too much. I don't think they actually listened to me. But if that's what they listened to, and the answer they came up with was, well, I've got the thing for you, Mr. PQ. We're just going to let you push into those people in spawn, instead of maybe rebalancing ships and maps and mechanics so that you're not incentivized to stay in spawn. No, we're going to add a ship that's so busted that it can just push in to an entire enemy team camping their spawn and still find a lot of success. That is not how I envisioned that going. Perhaps I need to work on my communication, but I really dislike this camping meta. And yet, these ships are maybe Wargaming's attempt to deal with that. Valparaiso probably also fits into that category. And I was wondering why Valparaiso sat so poorly with the community, and myself too, feeling like you can't do any damage to it. Once it gets into secondary range, until it's used all of its heals, it's going to live that entire time. That's not fun to play against. There's no decision making there, really. It's just outlasting them. What about this game where we're 3 minutes into the battle and I've full pushed into the B cap already? What's this Holland supposed to do? I don't understand the game design choices here. I wonder if the time to kill from secondaries is too high on this ship. And yet, I didn't have any games over 200k. That first clip I showed you with 150k, that was my highest damage game. I didn't actually do that much damage, and yet my damage was so randomly based on AI. I wasn't actually in control of most of my damage outside of positioning my ship. And I don't think that's particularly satisfying to play. You know, talking about Valparaiso for a second, I honestly haven't even played that ship since I made that last video on it a couple months ago. It's not that engaging to me. I'm someone who would much rather play a more standard battleship than that one for the most part. These gimmicks are fun temporarily, I think. They are fun for a moment. I was laughing during these Varese games. I really was. I was smiling, I was laughing just at the absurdity. Like, look at this heal, man. Look at this heal. It's so much. It's so much HP to get back. And the big problem being, well, it's got a 2-minute cooldown, so you're punished for that. But when there's carriers in the game, when there's subs in the game, when there's airstrikes in the game, there's often going to be plane-based ASWs, airstrikes, or just regular carrier strikes coming in. And that's where I've actually used the 4-point skill for AA, getting me a 50% cooldown reduction on my consumables. That's how I've gotten through all of these heals so quickly in a lot of these games. And I can do that because my concealment is like 12.2 kilometers with only one concealment upgrade on my upgrade slot. I'm not even running commander concealment upgrade on this build at all. I found it was not necessary. We have 12.5 kilometer secondary range base. So we're going to open up with our secondaries. We have stealth secondaries anyway. We're going to open up with them. We're going to get spotted anyway because of that. So why would I take it? May as well get that cooldown reduction, right? I don't know. I really don't know what to say to Wargaming about this. Every once in a while, the dispersion does work. I mean, it's a Minotaur at close range, but considering the inconsistencies I've seen with these guns, that was still a pretty good result. Oh, we're in a bit of trouble here. Look at this. Oh no, we've gotten smoked up by our Shinano. I played this thing entirely solo. I think it's crazy entirely solo. Imagine what a triple div can do. Now that's a scary thought, man. That is a very scary thought. What's the counterplay here? What's this Kleber supposed to do? Oh, don't get in secondary range, right? That's the standard advice that we're going to give to someone in a DD, right? Don't open up in secondary range. Well, what if our secondaries just outrange a Kleber unless he's running double range mod? Right? At a certain point here, what are we doing? And actually, I was going to survive this clip here. It was only the sub just torping me out like this that actually made me go down. Otherwise, I was going to live that. I'm laughing, but I'm kind of dying, man. This is just so sad. This is so sad to add to the game, man. You know, it kind of feels just like the game is playing itself when playing through these version of experimental ships, especially with the Varese here at tier 10. Your turret angles are so bad. And with this armor layout, we want to keep it angled. 27 mil bow, 40 here. We need to keep it angled. If we go broadside, we should take damage. I was not punished nearly enough, in my opinion, given the Citadel height here. Very above water Citadel. Not that well armored, honestly. We want to keep it angled. But then we just have no room to fire our main guns. That's the funny thing about Michelangelo hull. Now Varese here. These are secondaries. So secondary. It's not main gun. Maybe if you had player control of the secondaries and then you had to aim them yourself, you had to take the time, and maybe that would feel more engaging. But I don't know. This just feels too automated to me to even feel like I'm playing the video game, especially given that the range automatically buffs out to 15 kilometers when we're low HP. And sure, we're not going to be below 25% HP all that often since we will need to be healing. But even at 50% HP, we're getting out to 14 kilometers of secondary range with sap shells. The big ones pen 42 millimeters. That's through most battleships. Only 26 on the small ones. So that's why you noticed we didn't do as much damage to certain battleships. But at longer ranges, suddenly it becomes plunging fire. So if you have a 26 mil deck armor or less, suddenly that plunging fire gets through your deck armor, not just your superstructure. Same is true of these. A little bit less so because the shell velocity is a lot higher here, though. I don't know what else to say, man. I've kind of rambled this video, actually. Usually I'm a little more composed. Usually I've got more points that I want to hit, but I'm just still a little bit in shock that Wargaming decided that this was okay to release. And in fact, they're going to buff the rudder shift on release. So you're going to get a more maneuverable version. If you thought this thing wasn't tanky enough, there you go. It's going to get a rudder buff. I was actually running steering gears mod in this one, primarily because I figured I was going to be running around at top speed anyway. So why would I be running propulsion mod? Not having a smoke is a downside compared to Michelangelo, compared to Napoli. But this heavy repair team's getting through so much health, over 40,000 HP. It says 2 here, but that's just a port bug. It's supposed to be at 3 here. And that is what I played with, and that will be what you play with as well. And I think the other problem is this says 30% maximum secondary battery reload time. In the same patch notes that the heal was changed from 2 up to 3, you also go from 30 to 40% DPM. I'm quite disappointed that this is coming to the game. You know, I don't have very concrete thoughts on the whole secondary idea, brawling idea. I still love brawls and close range fighting, but these latest secondary versions, you know, Valparaiso, it probably started with the Libertad line, let's be honest. It's so powerful and so automated that it doesn't even feel like I'm the one in control, and I'm the reason that I'm winning that engagement. My decision making, my good aim, my good play. It's just the ship plays the game and wins because it's just that good anytime you're in secondary range. And for a ship like this one, almost any time you're in secondary range. I have yet to figure out my full thoughts on it, so I apologize if I'm rambling there, and maybe it doesn't make sense to you yet why I still like brawling, and I'm so frustrated that this is coming into the game. That is a bit, I don't know, hypocritical, or I don't know. It doesn't mesh well, and it doesn't mesh well right now in my brain. That's why I'm having such a tough time describing it. Perhaps I'll figure it out, and I'll make another video on this ship, or while we're talking about the Hotaka or the Protector, also secondary focused experimental ships coming. That will be for future videos though. As for the build on this one, this is what I ended up running. I don't think we need the 4th heal because again, we're not getting maximum value out of our healing anytime we get to even our 3rd heal. So that 4th one really isn't helping very much at all at that point. Survivability Expert, though, is guaranteed HP, and then that also means each one of our heals is based off of that base HP that we have when we start the battle. A Defense and ASW Expert is here purely for that 50% consumable prep and reload time. I don't need the concealment. 12-2 detect is fine when we have 12-5 secondary range. I don't know why that it's so good with concealment too, man. Like, actually, before I do that, I'll tell you the rest. Top grade gunner here. This is here purely for secondary reload. Not as much about the main guns. Again, we're not focused main guns here. This is a secondary ship. It's crazy. Pack-a-punch here, also for secondary range mostly, but it does buff those torps up, man. Oh, nearly 23,500 alpha damage torps. 8 kilometers, 72 knots. They're quite quick. Pack-a-punch is what's bringing that up from around 20,000. AR does stack. It does stack with this fight or flight buff, man. Crazy. Crazy decisions, man. Crazy decisions. Fill the tubes because really nothing else here. Maybe I should have gone focus fire training given how much carriers were in the game. You better believe I was not happy about the carrier focus, and yet I was playing a frustrating ship too. I gotta recognize that as well. Is that just the way boats is? Is that just the way World of Warships is? I play a boat that's frustrating for everyone else to fight against, and everyone else is playing ships that are frustrating to fight against. Is that just it? That sure feels like modern World of Warships game design for the past, what, 5 years at this point? Maybe a little more. Is that... Do we not take into account what ships are like to deal with when you're on the receiving end? I don't know. That's a question for Wargaming. Unlikely we get any concrete answer there, but I think the track record has proven that to be true, that they don't really care about the experience of fighting against this. Didn't mention it yet, but you do have a 5-kilometer Hydra, which is really nice for pushing in. Very, very useful. You could take a D-Fire, but we have Italian AA, so it's only 4.6 kilometers, allowing carriers to very easily get their drops lined up on you. And while you should have enough DPM to take out some planes, and we definitely did that in some of those games, it's still not enough to really deter the carrier from focusing you, especially if you're playing this ship aggressive, which is where it needs to be. It needs to be in secondary range to be doing anything at all in the battle. Then you're probably the target of focus because you've pushed yourself out of spawn, where most people won't be doing that. Very, very disappointed in these experimental ships overall. The first round was bad enough, but at least that was in players' control. It was very strong for players to control, but it was player controlled. This now is just the game plays itself. That's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate direction the game's going. I hope Wargaming can turn it around, but so far I am quite disappointed in the direction of this game in 2025. We're pretty much halfway through the year, guys, and it's been a rough year so far for development on this video game. But that is my thoughts right now. I apologize, bit of a downer of a video, even though it is new content coming into the game. I will say I've got some wild damage games in Hotaka. While the damage output on this one and the tier 8 as well, the secondary damage isn't too insane. It's just very frustrating to fight against. Where the Hotaka, though, that ship is frustrating to fight against and the damage is crazy. So look forward to that video coming very soon. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Again, I do read through the comments. I really want to know you guys' opinion on the game. It does impact the direction that I take my videos and where I bring my feedback, that kind of thing too. So please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.